Hello. We're continuing our study in the book of John. Today we're talking about the sick man at the pool of Bethesda. This is the man who was healed without ever asking. There was a feast of the Jews, and Jesus went up to Jerusalem. Now there is in Jerusalem, by the sheep gate, a pool called Bethesda. And in these there lay a multitude of people. They were blind, sick, lame, paralyzed. They were all waiting for the troubling of the waters, which meant that the angel was going to come down and stir the waters. And when that happened, the first one that went in the water was going to be healed immediately. Well, Bethesda is a Hebrew word meaning house of mercy. What a great place. God displayed his mercy when he allowed the angel to go down and trouble the water. A great multitude of people were there by the water waiting for their turn to be healed. The waters were healed, and in a moment, one person was healed of any disease. But many people had waited in vain. Just like the man we're going to be talking about today. He'd been there a long time, and there was no evidence that he had received any help from his healing. Who was this man? We don't know. We just know it was a certain man who was there who had an infirmity for 38 years. And when Jesus saw him lying by the pool, he knew that he had already been in that condition a long time. And he said, "Do you want to be made well?" You know, think about this pitiful scene. There was not just a few, but there was a great multitude of sick people lying around. It said that they were blind, they were lame, they had all manners of sicknesses. And Jesus approaches them, the crowd of sufferers, and here's God. He could have healed any one of them. He could have done it all, but this was an example of his grace and his mercy, because he went to this one man. Now, we don't know what infirmity this man had. All we know was he could not get into the pool by himself, and he had no one to help him. That means not only was he sick, but he was poor. Poverty had come upon him, and 38 years, the length of his affliction, made this miracle all the more greater. The miracle illustrates grace, God's grace that brought Jesus to the pool, God's grace that saw him look over the multitude and select this one man. Jesus did not heal them all. He could have. He was God. He had infinite resources at his power. But yet, in his grace and his mercy, he did choose one. You know, maybe you're that person today. God is looking at you. God loves you with that everlasting love. And maybe you're that person that God's going to smile down on, and he is going to choose you today to be the one who heals. See, God's eyes, Jesus' eyes went over the multitude until he centered down on that one. And that's the way it is with grace. He saw this one, and he knew that he had been in that condition for a very long time. He knew all about him, and he spoke to him. No, the man did not speak first. Jesus spoke first. Jesus approached the man just like God speaks to your heart. God initiates the contact, and he spoke, and he asked him what seemed like a very strange question. Do you want to be healed? What a dumb question, we would say. You know, after all, wouldn't the fact that he's lying there by the pool indicate that that was what he wanted? And also, you know, why ask somebody that's been sick for 38 years if they want to be healed? Well, the truth of the matter is, Jesus really understood mankind. And he knows that not every person really does want to be healed. You see, some people like the sympathy and attention that they get from being sick. They just as soon not give all that up and have to be treated like everyone else. And others, well, there's benefits and perks to being sick. Some people today don't want to give up their disability checks, don't want to be made well, so they have to go back to work. It's easier to lie around than it is to get up and go out. And some others, they have just sunk so low. They've been sick so long that there is no hope. They've become despondent and just given up, and maybe even they're thinking death would be better than to keep on living. But Jesus speaks to the situation. Jesus wants to impress on this man the helplessness of his condition. When he said, "Do you want to be made well?" he's doing more than just asking if he wants to get up and walk. What he is saying is equivalent to, "Are you willing for me to do for you what you cannot do for yourself?" He asked this question to raise the faith level and also to give him a greater desire to be healed. Well, the sick man should have responded, "Yes, I want to be healed." But what did he say? He said, "Well, sir, I have no man to put me in the pool when the water is stirred up. But while I am coming, another man steps there and gets in front of me." Excuses. That's what he had. That's how he answered Jesus. He had been in this condition so long that both his will and his body were now paralyzed. He said, "Yes, sir, but I have no man." His long suffering combined with deep poverty caused him to think of the pool and of his source of help. He said, "I don't have anyone to help me." Too broken down in mind and body to believe, when the great physician said, "Do you want to be made well?" the only thing he could think of was, "I have no one." He thought he had to do something to make himself well. He thought, getting well depends on me. If it doesn't depend on me, it's going to depend on the pool, how fast I can get there. And if it doesn't depend on me, and if it doesn't depend on the pool, it's going to depend on someone else. No, he did not realize the one who spoke to him and said, "Do you want to be made well?" had everything that he needed within him to give to this man who was sick and to make him well. And how sad are his closing words. "I have no one, but when I get close to the pool, someone else gets in front of me. Someone else steps down first." Now, maybe you feel like that's how things have gone for you in your life. You've been pushing, you've been trying all your life, but everyone else just seems to get ahead of you. You're never first, but you're always last. Someone else with more talent, with more ability, more power, more money, more whatever, always gets in front of you and pushes you out of the way just when it's time for you to receive that blessing, that help that you need. Jesus says, "I'm here. I will help you. I see who you are, and I see what your need is." And so what did Jesus tell him to do? Jesus said, "Rise, take up your bed, and walk." And immediately the man was made well, took up his bed and walked, and the day was a Sabbath. The sufferer here, that poor man, had made absolutely no cry for help. And when Christ inquired if he were willing to be made well, all he said, he had no one. There was no faith. But in the sovereign grace of God, Jesus spoke a command that caused him to realize he could do something. He had a responsibility. And no matter how bad your life is today, no matter how long you've been in it, no matter how bad the circumstances, you can do something. And so he gave him 3 commands. First of all was rise up. Well, now, this was a very pivotal command because it caused him to recognize that Jesus was in authority, and he had to immediately respond to his orders. Second thing was take up your bed. Now, the bed was probably nothing more than a cotton pallet. It was something that was easily rolled up. But in doing this, there was to be no thought of failure and no relapses. He says, I want you to take up your bed, fold it up, and it's not going to be laying there for you to fall back down on. A lot of times when we take what we think is a step of faith, we want to have something to hold on to just in case. We want to hang on to something in case things don't go just the way we said. And finally, he said, and walk. Now, this was equivalent to Jesus saying, you were unable to walk into the water. You could not walk in order to be cured, but now you are being made whole, so now walk. That's what he was telling him to do. And when the man did that, when he got up, when he put his bed under his arm rather than on the ground, and he took that step, and immediately he was cured. He listened to the commands of Jesus. The man who was unable to do anything before Christ came did now exactly what Christ commanded him to do. And this was an instantaneous miracle that was complete. And Jesus did nothing but speak the word, and the miracle was accomplished. And all the people at the pool saw it. And the Jews therefore said to him who was cured, it is the Sabbath day. You're not supposed to be carrying your bed. You see, the scribes had 39 things you couldn't do on the Sabbath day. Their law was just rules and regulations. Well, and the miracle that Jesus did was wonderful. But the scribes couldn't see that because they were focused on, you broke one of our commandments. And Jesus, he knew all about the Sabbath day. He knew about their rules and regulations. He could have come one day sooner and healed that man. Or even when he arrived on the scene and he saw the man, he could have waited another day to heal him. And even in doing that, he did not have to tell him to take up his bed and walk. Why do you think Jesus would just intentionally cause problems? Well, I can think of a couple of reasons. One, this man was poor. That bed was probably his greatest possession. And if he left it there, it probably wouldn't be there when he got back to get it tomorrow. And he certainly was not going to stay there all night and watch it. So the man needed to take his bed to protect it. The other thing is, when Jesus did a miracle, especially in Jerusalem, it was so that others would see and glorify God because of what had been done. And he knew that having a man who had been healed carry his bed around on the Sabbath day would certainly draw a lot of attention, which it did. So he did this miracle so that it was seen. Well, the people said, the Jews asked this man, who healed you? And why are you carrying your bed? And he answered them, he who made me well said to me, take up your bed. Maybe the man reasoned, the one that told me to do this, if he could do a miracle like this, he has to be from God. He has to be a good man. Maybe that's why he did it. And he couldn't do any evil. The one thing we know is he did not enter into a big discussion with them about how they valued the Sabbath day, their rules and regulations over those who had been suffering, how they valued their rules and regulations over the good miracles of God. He did not do that. He testified to them of the one who healed him and what he had told them to do. So they said, well, who is the man who said this to you, who told you to take up your bed and walk? But the one who was healed did not know who it was, for Jesus had withdrawn, a multitude being in the place. He was healed and obeyed, and he followed the command of the one who healed him, but he did not even know that Jesus was the Christ, the Son of the living God. Maybe Jesus withdrew because of the crowd. Maybe he wanted the man to stand on his own and see if he could take a stand against the Jewish leaders. We don't know the reason for this, but Jesus left the man here, just like we'll see him leaving the blind man in John chapter 10. And, afterwards, though, Jesus did find him. He found him in the temple and said, "See, you have been made well. Sin no more, lest a worse thing come upon you." That a work of grace had been completed in this man's heart and soul, as well as in his body, we have no doubt. It's evident, since the first place he went was to the temple, the house of prayer and praise. He knew that it was the mercy of God that restored him. And though he did not know who Christ was, he knew who God was, and he wanted to honor him. No one told him to go to the temple. No one told him to thank God or to offer sacrifices, but he went. And that's where Jesus found him, not in the crowd, but alone in the temple. And Jesus went to him to reveal who he was, and he gave him two proofs of his knowledge. Knowledge that he knew his past. He said, "Sin no more." And knowledge that he knew his future, lest something worse than this ever come upon you again. Well, the man left the temple, he left Jesus. It doesn't say Jesus left him. It says that the man left there. And we don't know what impact Jesus' words had upon this man. All we do know is that when he left, he told the Jews that it was Jesus who made him well. And for this reason, the Jews persecuted Jesus and sought to kill him because he had done these things on the Sabbath. You see, as soon as Jesus revealed himself to this newly healed, possibly new Christian, the very first thing he did was go out to those who had previously interrogated and criticized him. He told the Jews, "Jesus is the one who healed me." He did not say, "Jesus is the one who told me to carry my bed on the Sabbath." There is a huge difference there, and we need to be sure that we recognize this. He let them draw their own inferences. Jesus is the one who healed me. And from that they could assume and know Jesus healed me because he's the Son of God, or they could say, Jesus healed me because of that I carried my bed. We don't know which the reason is, because he could have, instead of doing that to display God's power, he could have done that to inform the men who were Jews and wanting to kill Jesus that they now had a reason. Maybe he was fearful. We don't know. The Jews, we do know, turned their attention and accusations from the man who was healed to Jesus from that day. So it's really hard for us to understand the relationship between this man and Jesus. There's no evidence that he believed on Christ and was saved, although we don't know that he really opposed Jesus. He did not know who healed him until Jesus found him there in the temple, but without a doubt, the man went to the temple to give thanks to God and to offer the appropriate sacrifices for being healed. Jesus suggests that sin was the cause of his physical problems in the past and tells him, don't keep on sinning or something worse than this will happen to you. We don't know what happened to the man. Only God knows the motives of the heart and why a man does what he does. And I think this is a great example for us as we see people not to be too quick to judge what they do, because we don't know the why. Only God knows the why. Our job is to pray for those and to look for God's goodness and mercy in every situation. And when we see someone that has experienced the grace of God, whether they admit that it's from God or not, we should rejoice and praise God for His great mercy and continue to pray for that person. I know many of you are in contact with people. You look at their lives and you think, I don't know if they're a Christian or not. They're like this man. They've never really claimed Jesus. I don't know if they are or not. And that's exactly right. There's many people that we don't know about, but God knows the heart. And it's God's divine mercy and God's divine grace that will save them the very same way that His divine grace and His divine mercy was able to move upon your life and to save you and bring you to a saving knowledge of Him for all eternity. So, till the next time, just keep studying in the book of John and know that all of the people here have a special message just for you.